everybody, and welcome to the final practice hour before the 2025 IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship Rolex 24 at Daytona. The field is all ready to head out onto the circuit as well. Let's cross over then and get all set to go. IMSA Radio taking you through. Let's hand over trackside for the 1 hour session with, so far, okay conditions. Let's head down trackside and join the radio team, beginning with Johnny Palmer and John Heindel as well. Just waiting for the music to fade out and them to start talking.
The sunshine in the Sunshine State has been conspicuous by its absence for the last few days, but I'm delighted to say that I can barely look through the glass in front of me in the commentary box that looks over the World Centre of Racing, because it's a beautiful day here on the East Coast, because after some very bitterly cold days over the last few leading into this Friday before the big running of the 63rd edition of the Rolex 24, the cloud cover has generally gone, blue sky above, and this piercing sunshine ahead of the final free practice session of the weekend. Just 3 of them these days. This will be the shortest as well at 60 minutes, and with no morning warm-up tomorrow, a final opportunity to get some running in after so many kind of passed it up last night. There was ample opportunity to do some nighttime running, but it wasn't really relevant with greasy and changeable conditions. I'm sure we'll get many more takers as the pit lane is fit to bursting with almost all of the 61 cars that will take part in this year's Daytona 24 hours, and you can hear it all live here on RS2 IMSA Radio.
The WeatherTech Sports Car Championship on IMSA Radio.
And from the Ford Performance Global Broadcast Centre, my name's Johnny Palmer, delighted to be joined actually for the first time together with Ryan Marine, and we also have down at ground level Nick Damon and Joe Bradley looking after the CrowdStrike pit and paddock reports. It's like a different weekend, Ryan.
Totally feels like a completely different welcoming party that came out to greet us here this morning with the sunshine overhead, and it does feel nice and toasty up here in the Ford Global Performance Broadcast Center. This is a wonderful vantage point, of course, looking over Daytona International Speedway, and I think everyone from the fans to the teams, and maybe especially the crews, are thrilled that we have the sunshine and the warmer weather. It was a slog working down in the pit lane the last couple of days with not just the cold, but the precipitation and, of course, the humidity in the air being this close to the Atlantic Ocean.
It's one thing being cold, but then it's being damp and cold.
You're telling me.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's easy for me to say. You've actually been out in the thick of it, as have the boys down providing the CrowdStrike pit lane reports. Let's hear from Nick Damon, first of all. It's already far busier in this session than it was at any point yesterday evening.
Yeah, the cars are coming out. I have gone full lizard, by the way. I'm sitting on a rock. Yeah, I'm lying on a rock, just absorbing the heat of the sun. I'll be scurrying away in a minute to catch an insect, but as far as the cars are concerned, yeah, we had a huge amount of takers straight away. A lot of them from Pit In. Now, Pit In, of course, is where virtually all of the GTPs are, and they've all sidled their way up. Be interesting if both the BMWs make it. They were absent last night, including the car, of course, of Sheldon van der Linde, which broke down during qualifying, and they had to do quite a lot of reconstruction of the various electrical elements of the car. But apart from that, we have only a couple of cars left in the apron now, as they're all, in fact, they've been going so fast that some of them already complete their first installation lap and are coming back towards us.
And actually, there was a coming together on that installation lap, the number 11 TDS car, as well as the 88 AF Corsa LMP2. A little side swipe action into one of the horseshoes, and so the TDS crew wasting no time having that car come into the pits to take a quick look at it. This other car involved from AF Corsa, blue and white livery on the car. I told John yesterday, I feel like this reminds me of the old Players Forsyth Indy cars, the livery on this machine. It's striking in the sunshine, and it was striking on track when the two LMP2s came together. This car continuing on, though, the number 88 from AF Corsa, And it looks like the TDS car just that brief stop in the pit lane just to make sure everything is ship-shape.
There's been a little bit of unnecessary shoulder barging already these last few days. I'm thinking of the Acura and Lamborghini during qualifying. That was only yesterday, wasn't it? Just after lunch, we had the all-important session to set the grid. And then after that, night practice followed by today's session. I'll run you through some of the key positions in the grid a little bit later on, but just allowing everyone to get into a rhythm in the first 5 minutes of this shortest free practice session. One of the two Porsche Penske Motorsport cars heading straight back into pit lane, as is one of the Team RLL BMWs as well. Remember, only one of those cars managed to qualify, but it was the most crucial position, with Dries Vanthoor taking the pole position for this weekend's season starter for the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. A 133.895 for the Belgian, putting the 24 BMW onto the pole position. Let's hear from the other end of the pit lane then, and Joe Bradley with his CrowdStrike report.
Yeah, really quite pleasant out here now that the sun's come up. I've gone for the no hat strategy, the non-woolly hat strategy for the first time this week. It really is quite pleasant. Significantly, like Nick was saying, he's basking like a lizard. This sunshine on the track is going to give us a higher track temperature than we've seen pretty much all week. And we've not experienced this track temperature, not even at the Raw. It hasn't been like this all week. So this is going to be a bit of a voyage of discovery. We're already seeing teams scrubbing tyres in. That's the norm. This is effectively a 1 hour kind of a morning warm-up session the day before, where, you know, systems checks, lots of teams, lots of cars didn't appear last night. They will have been having, gearbox overhauls, maybe even a race engine fitting. We saw all of that maintenance going on, and now this hour is about to see whether all those nuts and bolts and what have you, all those connectors are on right. So apart from scrubbing in tyres for race day, we know what that's all about. We learned from that in this morning's Michelin session. I think we're also going to see a lot of data being acquired as to just how the tyres are reacting to what we're now seeing as warmer track surface temperatures.
Drama on the track now for the 60 Acura that will be starting from 6th position on the grid tomorrow. It's on the infield, not quite got as far as the International Horseshoe, so it's out of our... Oh no, it is in our direct vision, Ryan. Stopped in an awkward position right in the middle of the braking zone, although it's over to the left, so shouldn't pose too much of an issue. Being covered by local yellow flags right now, but if it stays there for much longer, we may have to go full course caution. Who's in the car?
Felix Rosenquist,
okay.
I believe, Meyer-Shank Racing's IndyCar driver that they brought over to join the lineup. It's a star-studded lineup for Meyer-Shank across their two cars. And as you speculated, Johnny, we do have the red flag out to cover Felix Rosenquist's stop car. It just came to a halt. Now, the question I have, was it on an out lap? It was. So that is just exiting the pit lane. That's right where the pit lane ends and the racing line begins in the entrance to the International Horseshoe.
Recovery with it very quickly, and whilst that takes place, let's head to Nick Damon.
Yeah, I also noticed we've got red flag as well, which is going to annoy some people. Let's see how Nico Faroni feels about it. Nico, what's the programme for this hour? It's sort of halfway house in a practice session and a morning warm-up at the previous day.
It's a bit nicer. The weather looks good. They say tomorrow is going to be even better. This practice will help us to understand a bit more, get ready everything for tomorrow, do driver change practice, getting the little details done.
At this case, do you need to do any more laps, or is the whole track absolutely, embedded in your brain?
Yeah, it depends on every team and the program. For us, I think we did a great job during the Raw and practice yesterday. I'm getting it's a bit tricky. Yeah, but no, it's honestly for us. I think for me, it's already done everything. We are in a good spot. So we will get ready for tomorrow.
It's a good point you make, because all the teams and all the cars have been here for so long. Are you beginning to forget some of the things you learned over a week ago?
Yeah, it depends on everyone, right? Maybe if you are in the spot where you need to keep working or you're not comfortable with the car, So for us, it's been pretty good. So we hope for a good race tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
There is about seeing the Cadillac logo on the back of Wayne Taylor. Wayne, I'm old enough to remember the North Star program. I'm also old enough to remember you in an Intrepid. That relationship with GM being rekindled this year. Give us a bit of an idea about how the deal came back together.
Well, it all happened about 2 years ago. I was at the one of the Concours d'Elegance, and turns out that Mark Royce, Jim Campbell, and Rory Harvey, and everybody was there, and they were all standing in a circle. And I went over to Jim Campbell and I said, "Hey Jim, I need a minute with Mark Royce." And this is no joke. Within 20 seconds, there was nobody standing there except me and Mark. And it was like, okay. And so I said, "Hi Mark, hi Wayne." I said, "Would you ever have me back?" He said, "Of course I would." He said, "When can you come back?" So I said, contract 25. So he goes, yeah, 25 is good. 3 years, 25, 26. I said, yes. I said, "But you've got Ganassi, you've got all these teams." He goes, "Doesn't matter. I want you to come back." So on the Monday after the weekend, after that particular weekend.
Was there any alcohol involved at this point?
Well, no, that's the good part. There wasn't. There wasn't. But you never know. Anyway, so on the Monday, I thought, I wonder what's going to happen next. And lo and behold, I get a call from Jim Campbell. And he goes, "Hey, Mark, wanted to confirm are you sure you clear for 25, 26, and 27? And it was done just like that. Wow, incredible. And then, but what was really incredible about the whole thing was Mark was just so passionate about this. It's a big deal for him. And then they've built this new technical center, which has put them into such a different league in motorsport and stuff. And the guy I've been working with for the last 2 years is Eric Warren, also from GM. He reports to Royce. And then the previous CEO of Cadillac, Rory Harvey, has moved further up, and John Roth has taken over. And so all of these guys have been like family to me over the years, and I've known them, as you said, the Intrepid, the Spice Chevrolet, the Pontiac Grand Am car, the Oldsmobile Aurora winning here. I mean, it's 28 to 30 years relationship, and it all comes down to that. So we're very excited. It's always hard to start your first race for a new partner, and it's 24 hours, because you're scrambling from the end of the season. You're getting cars from other teams. You've got to rebuild them. You've got to wait for cars to come from overseas. You've got all new engineering groups. You've got to learn how each other works. And so, and then, of course, there's the BOP, and that wasn't very good. And they've made a slight change. I just think that this is going to be something work in progress. I don't think we have the speed that the 60 and the 93 have, or even the two BMWs. However, it's 24 hours. We've won a couple of these, and so we can only do our best with what we have.
From where we're sitting, Wayne, there's something right about it, and I'm pleased that you're here back with Cadillac. I've got lots of questions. I haven't got time to ask you in this session. Maybe 3 o'clock in the morning, middle of the night, that's the time we'll have a coffee and we'll have a longer chat. I'd like to talk to you about the Intrepids. I'd like to talk about everything. You know me. I'll see you in the middle of the night, Wayne. That's brilliant. The fans are loving it. Oh, yes.
Are they? He said, "Yes, Wayne. We absolutely adore a good conversation with you in the middle of the night, preferably 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning." And whilst all that was happening, and Nick was catching up with various drivers too, Nick Tandy had a real squirrely moment, and me and you, Ryan, still trying to work out precisely where it was on the high banks, but the nose, the front right of the Porsche, going into the safer barrier, and he had to come into pit lane and have that nose replaced. We are back to green now, by the way, but whilst that red flag was out, touring its way back to pit road was Tommy Milner in his Corvette. Got going again now. That's the number 4 GT Corvette from Pratt & Miller, and not really sure what the problem was there, but it took him a while to get back to safe ground, and it remains to be seen whether that car can be turned around very quickly. Hopefully it can.
It was a strange red flag because it came out for the number 60 car stopped on track, but then subsequently 2 other cars had apparently unrelated issues. So You're right, the Nick Tandy number 7 Porsche Penske car came into the pits. They were taking a good close look at the right front suspension on that car, but apparently gave it the okay because they've gone ahead and affixed a new nose to the front of that machine. They're still working on it right now. In fact, I could see out the window there's a whole host of Porsche Penske mechanics just pouring all over that race car. So still assessing the damage or maybe the root cause for whatever made that Porsche 963 turn abruptly to the right and into the outside retaining wall. And then subsequent to that is when we saw Tommy Milner come to a stop, and he was stationary for a good number of minutes before finally getting power back in that Corvette and actually made his way back around to the pit lane.
Sometimes these cars, having been prepared for most of the morning and then turned on and driven very quickly, then they don't like being turned off again during a red flag and the speed being reduced. But that wasn't Nick Tandy's problem. It was more associated with Tommy Milner. Yeah, there was just a squirm to the right, and I wasn't even sure he was going into a bend at the time, but the car just pitching right, didn't have time to react, and that will be more of a concern as to the cause rather than repairing the damage. So getting accustomed to driving this place at speed, particularly with the throttle wide open and with cars around you as well, and 3 GTs, really close quarters, heading for the tri-oval now. A couple of them actually peeling off and down pit lane, but Alexis and the Porsche very close to one another, heading down in towards turn 1. Alexis had some difficulties during free practice 1, I felt, with the 12 car having to spend quite a bit of time with maybe damper suspension issues, maybe engine related. Couldn't really get a bit of information from the team, but they'll be hoping to get a lot more laps in pro rata in this 60-minute session.
On the bright side, that team knows this car as well as any team knows any car in the paddock. It is the oldest GTD Pro car in the field, and the Vassar Sullivan team, they've been running it almost since the inception of the program, not quite from the very beginning. Moment for the Riley Motorsports LMP2 off in the second horseshoe. Unclear if it was able to continue. Looks like it was, and then a bit of a scary moment rejoining with a whole host of traffic right behind.
Yeah, not ideal to be working its way slowly from the grass back onto the asphalt, but everybody was able to see what was going on ahead after good work from the corner workers. The competition within LMP2 this weekend is striking, and one car I'm sure that will be towards the front end is the TDS Racing example number 11, and from that car, Stephen Thomas now chatting to Nick.
Stephen, do you kind of feel that your big moment of the weekend has kind of passed already once qualifying's done? That's your time to shine, isn't it, as a bronze driver?
Yeah, the qualifying was so much fun. The competition is getting crazy in bronze P2. There's all these young guys and old guys that are fast, and it is a lot of fun. We really enjoy it. It's really something all the bronzes can do together too. We all know each other, and afterwards a lot of high-fiving.
So we've now got this weird 1-hour session set alone on this Friday. I mean, what is the team trying to achieve during this hour?
I think because the way they redid the Roar this year, we had a lot in the Roar, but not that much this week. Just make sure everybody gets a chance to get in the car, feel comfortable, make sure that all the little things are taken care of, like making sure you're loosening your belts coming in. So I think it's a fun session. I'm looking forward to my turn to drive.
And for once this week anyway, we're picking up some temperature. How is that going to affect things in the car and with the car?
Well, I think our car's been pretty good in the cold, so I hope it doesn't warm up too much. But I think in the car's pretty comfortable. You know, it's not too hot, it's not too cold, so I think just a little bit of sun on the track maybe makes that out lap a little bit easier.
So the plan is to cycle all 4 of you through during this hour?
Because of the hour, we're only going to get 3 in. So one of the guys got a little more time in the night last night. So we're going to do 3 drivers today. I don't know what other people are doing, but it's been a lot of fun. I tell you, one thing about what's happened with IMSA, with the growing of the IMSA, the growing of the fans, the growing of the competition, it's made every practice kind of intense and even more fun.
Thanks, Steve. Good luck.
Thanks a lot, man.
LMP2 is always strong at races like Le Mans and other key ACO rule races through the course of the year. It's become a a real hotbed of talent potentially for GTP drives in the future as well, and there are very few variables in terms of the machinery these days. Orica 07s across the board, so then it is all about how you set that car up on a difficult track, which is one element is high speed and high camber, but then it's also got to be good on the infield to those slower speed corners, and then your driver makeup will determine where you finish, and ideally on the podium. But there are many drivers that could potentially squeeze onto there. Let's stay in pit road and get another CrowdStrike update, this time with Joe.
So, Philippe, what heart rate did you get there when Nick just nudged the number 7 Porsche into the barrier?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell from here, but all I can say it's extremely difficult on the cold tire. When you're out of the pits, it just looked like, we had a moment going into the banking and had a scratch on the wall there. We don't know if there's damage yet, but the team is reassessing to see. Hopefully we can get going and, get a final read on the car now, because it's probably the last time we're going to get a chance to see the car running before the race starts. So hopefully nothing major, and everything looks fine for now. So the team is checking, and hopefully we'll be just fine to be running.
Felipe, it seems to be cold at Daytona. It seems to be a new thing and becoming quite common. Do you think it's time to maybe reconsider tyre warmers?
Honestly, I feel like it's cold and it's extreme at points, but we just have to be mindful, and do the best job we can for what we have. And we've seen all the cars struggle with that as well, but I mean, we've been in this situation before, and I don't think it's time for a change yet, but we just have to be very mindful and careful when going out there. That's all.
When you first leave the pits on cold tyres, when exactly do you start feeling confident with the tyre being up to temperature?
Within 3-4 laps, probably.
3 or 4, so many as that. All right, man, I'll leave you to your job. Thank you, Felipe. That's quite I didn't expect that. 3 or 4 laps where you are absolutely on the edge. It's a bit tricky, that, isn't it? I'm glad I'm not doing that.
But thank you for asking the question, because it was always interesting speaking to Felipe. We've had another slightly strange moment in this session that's not that old, barely 20 minutes. Now, it's one of the Triarci Ferrari 023, which has clearly had an issue through speedways turns 1 and 2. We thought initially, Ryan, that the car had no power, but maybe it's tyre or suspension related.
Yeah, just got a good close look on a replay, and I'm going to guess it's the left rear that's down for an Onofrio Triarci. He was at full tilt going around the high banks, turns 1 and 2 of the oval, and then just very quickly rolled out at the throttle and brought that car down to the apron and has limped it around. He's done a nice job because the tire still is inflated to some degree, but by the look of it, wasn't fully up to pressure, and that could have been a lot more catastrophic had the tire fully let go. So heads up driving from the veteran of Ferrari Challenge Racing, now in his 3rd year of GT3 style racing at Onofrio Triarci.
Yeah, so don't risk anything. Get out of the power, get off the bank, and then try and nurse the thing home. But again, why is a tire suddenly going bang after only, we haven't had 20 minutes of full running, of course. We had a red flag in the middle of that as well. So the 60 GTP Acura stops on what you think was an outlap, certainly not very long into a stint at all. We've had Tommy Milner's Corvette stopped in the red flag. Nick Tandy isn't really related to these incidents, because that was a moment where the car pitched sideways and he glanced the wall. But yes, now the 023 Ferrari having a difficulty with a puncture, which I'm sure they will be checking out. Camber settings maybe, but again, it's even too early in the session for that. As we continue to scratch our heads in the Ford Performance Global Broadcast Centre, let's head to Nick Damon for this CrowdStrike report.
With Charlie Eastwood from the DXDT Corvette. Right, literally the last last pit perch, we want to call it, at the pit lane. Is there any advantage or disadvantage being absolutely last in the pit lane?
The disadvantage is it's a very long walk from the truck.
I mean, we still try to get to the to the fast lane in the pits, but I feel like it's probably a bit of an advantage purely because we will never have to skate out if somebody's ahead of us. So yeah, we're not against it, except for a lot of the team have done a lot of steps over the last week, getting back and forth through the truck.
You're super fit racing driver. It's a bonus, isn't it?
What, sorry?
You're a super fit racing driver. That's a bonus.
Yeah. I normally get nice treatment in a golf cart.
Let's talk about the Corvette. I mean, it had a kind of a difficult debut in customer hands at the beginning of last year. Is it now a fully developed GT3 car, one you can just drop and go?
Yeah, I mean, last year it was difficult for all of us for sure, but I raced the car in WEC this year, and the rate of development and the resource that Corvette and GM put into the program is next to none, and with that we've just made huge steps every single race, and we've arrived here with a completely different package to what we had last year.
Oh, in IMSA, of course, there are two Works Corvettes. Do you have information sharing between the Works team and the customer teams?
Yeah, again, that's such an amazing part of it. It is so open. All 5 teams go and sit down at the end of each day to discuss where we all are, and we have an open server to see everybody's data. So I think having that sort of continuity and also a big kudos to the factory team. Like, they want to also help the customers as much as possible, but they can also gain from things that we're doing. So yeah, at times it feels like a 5-car race team, which is super nice. So yeah, we're in a pretty good spot.
So will all 5 cars be set up the same way, or will the pro cars be a bit edgier?
No, not really. Again, for us, we don't have a bronze driver, and I've raced with Sally for a long time, and ultimately giving him the fastest car possible is the best. It doesn't need to be more safe. The car has a great balance front to rear, so it's not one of these cars that you need to have it super on the edge to do the lap time. So we're all actually quite similar in the setup now.
Just an hour session here. Are you going to rotate through all the drivers, just a couple?
Yeah, everyone's getting a go. I'm done now. I've just done the first 5 or 6 laps to get a baseline, and then yeah, we're going to cycle through everyone.
Best luck to the team. Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you.
Charlie Eastwood with Nick Damon. Some quicker times starting to come through now. For instance, Jordan Pepper in the FAF Motorsports Lamborghini's just gone quickest in GTD Pro in the number 9 car, 148.236. And Toby Sowery topping the LMP2 runners in the CrowdStrike Racing by ARP Orica. That's car 04, which is not the pole sitter. That will be the number 22 car for the race this weekend, the United Autosports USA crew. It turned out to be principally a bronze session for the LMP2 qualifying yesterday. They'll all start, therefore, Daniel Goldberg doing the time. But Sowery's currently fastest in free practice 3 as we go back to the pits, and here's Joe again.
Well, you've just brought the number 83 Iron Dims Porsche in. I want to ask you, the first time, and I think, we haven't seen the sun at all here in Florida, the Sunshine State, remember, until this morning. Has that made a massive difference to track evolution?
So first of all, it's super nice to see the bright side back of Florida. Clearly it's more beautiful with the sun. Also track condition, it's a bit easier clearly to get everything on temperature, especially cold tires, the brakes. I think the night's thing going to be still quite interesting. Weather forecast is better than the last couple of days, but it's still cold temperature. So, yeah, we have to be smart out there. We have to be careful, not making any mistakes. And in the end, it's an endurance race. It's a 24-hour race, and we have to get to the finish line.
Rael, I've just asked a GTP driver this question, so I'll ask you, a GT driver. When you go out there on cold tyres, how long before you feel confident of the car underneath you?
It takes a while. For us, yeah, definitely. For us, I would say 2 up to 3 laps till we can full push. But, luckily in a GT cars, we have the ABS, we have traction control, so we have a lot of supporting systems, which we have to make use of this supporting system now, especially in the tricky condition. And, yeah, it's just about being patient for once as a racing driver.
I saw your social media, the team social media. You guys seem happy with qualifying, where you're going to start?
Yeah, absolutely. P10 was a decent result for us, Actually, it's in the middle of everybody, so it's going to be interesting. But as I said before, it's a 24-hour race. It's a long race. We just aim to not doing any mistakes, to be reliable on the technical side, on the team side as drivers, and then we see where we end up.
You make it sound so easy. Thank you, Rail.
10th place, Michelle Gatting will start the Iron Dames Porsche. 1:46.9 was the qualifying time from the Dane. Karen Gaillard being brought in to join the Iron Dames. Been a big fan of Karen for the last few years, actually, in things like the Michelin Le Mans Cup in Europe. Rahel Fry and Sarah Bovey much more established, but Sarah Bovey's driver grading has changed over the winter time, of course. Long time bronze, very nearly a silver before this, and sort of protested that, but now has to open her arms and say, well, I've got to be silver because I keep winning things.
It's a bitter pill to swallow in some respects. You want the recognition, you want the accolades, but on the other hand, it does make your career ladder a little bit narrower and more perilous to navigate. But certainly understandable why the promotion took place. And look, you just have to look at the success that they've had across the board. The Iron Dames, that program, it's not tokenism. They are here for a reason. They are excellent, and I can't wait to see Karen. I've heard about her by reputation and all that she's done in Europe. I think this is her first chance to come race stateside, and what a place to make your debut.
Yeah. Well, that's the great thing about this championship. You start with the biggest race of the year, and there's kind of nowhere to hide then. But I suppose arguably it gets a little easier, maybe, if they do stick around for a few more races later in the season. Now, you've been keeping a close eye, Ryan, on the Porsches from Penske Motorsport. They've had a troubled opening 10 minutes or so, but we've got to half distance, and one of their cars, the 6, is now fastest.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag, isn't it? So the 6 is the fastest in the session, as you rightly say, but we talked earlier about the 7, Nick Tandy, having the issue effectively during the red flag earlier in the session. Now, good news for them, that car has been repaired and actually sent back out on track. Right now, Lawrence Vanthor listed as the driver. Hasn't really turned in a representative lap time just yet. He's behind all of the LMP2s, in fact, but that car is repaired, and they're putting it through its paces after the very strange incident earlier. Speaking of strange incidents, we have the 60 stopping. That's what brought out that red flag, let's remember, with Felix Rosenquist driving. Great work by the AMR safety team. They got that car back to the garage. The Meyer-Shank crew evidently saw what they needed to see, got it dealt with, and that car was immediately back out in the pit lane, and it has been sent back out on track as well at this stage. So both of the GTP class cars that have had some strife early in the session have returned to the action.
An intriguing message surrounding the 60 car stopping into the International Horseshoe has just appeared at the bottom of the screen. The cause of the red flag with car 60 is now under review, because remember, much earlier on in the working towards the Rolex 24 for this year, the first session involved an issue for Porsche number 5, which saw some of the suspension fall off that car and end up on the track at turn 1. And the Proton Competition 963 was assessed as causing the red flag because a bit of its bodywork fell off, and consequently it was due to lose its fastest lap in qualifying. That was subsequently rescinded, but I suppose now we're in free practice 3, there's nothing stopping the number 60 car having its best time from qualifying yesterday stripped. We'll get to that in just a moment, but first of all, let's head to, in fact, both pit lane reporters. First of all, Nick, and then Joe after that.
Down in the air, of course, a pit with Arthur Leclerc. Arthur, you've driven just about everything this year now, haven't you? We've seen you in F1, we've seen you drive other single-seaters, and now in a GT3. I mean, are you enjoying the first stage of your career at the moment?
Yeah, of course. I think it's the first time that I drive so many cars. So, yeah, it's really good fun. First time in the 24 hours as well, so it will be a new challenge for me, and looking forward to start the race tomorrow.
Now, obviously, you know that all the top-line single-seater drivers are super fit, but how are you preparing specifically for running your first 24-hour race?
Well, I mean, there is not much you can do to prepare. I think it's really, really special. I think, yeah, you need to do it to take experience, so that's why I'm here, to just take experience, to do the best that we can, and to hopefully win this race.
I mean, you're going to be involved in some night driving, you're going to be involved in driving when you're tired. Is there anything you can actually do, or is it just, I have to experience it and then I can learn from it?
Yeah, I mean, in the end, I had a season last year in Italian GT, so obviously I have a bit of experience in endurance, but I never did 24 hours, and I think it will be really magical for me, and will be really nice to learn from this first time.
Daytona is certainly a unique track. How have you found it? What do you think of this circuit itself?
It's really cool, but in the end, in the speedway, unfortunately, I don't feel much because, you know, with the speed, you just feel that it's almost a straight. But yeah, when you do the track walk and then you climb the speedway, that's another thing. So yeah, it was really fun first laps and really enjoyed.
Well, I suppose given you're driving everything, surely a NASCAR's the next thing for you, isn't it?
I'm not there yet. My target, yeah, obviously, is to do this race, do this year, and then let's see for the future.
Thanks so much. Hang on.
Thank you.
So we just saw the Meerschaank number 60, the Acura, ground to a halt there out on track. Felix Rosenquist was at the wheel of the guy. He's now in front of me. Felix, what happened there? Do you know anything?
I don't know exactly what happened. They say they know, so I just kind of followed the instructions on the radio and got it back in the garage, and we were out straight away. So not sure exactly what it was, but they don't seem too concerned about it, and obviously it's good to get these things out of the way before the big one tomorrow.
You didn't hear any horrible noises? You know, these guys are so technical, aren't they?
I think you're right. It's a complex piece of machinery, and I think we just got something a little bit wrong, and seems like it's adjusted now, and the car's running fine. So yeah, hopefully no more of that.
Will causing a red flag have any kind of knock-on effect with regards to yesterday's times being deleted? Do you know?
No idea. We haven't.
Yeah, you're a driver, aren't you, Felix? You don't care about that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I just follow what they say I need to do, and that's it, really. So yeah, I'm not sure. I think, you know, qualifying is done, so I'm not. I know there was some guys got penalized from practice to qualifying, but I'm not sure how it works here. But I think we're in pretty good shape.
Daytona, always a great way of kind of getting you into the seat for the 2025 season. The IndyCar season, which is your primary season series, it finishes in September. That was like ages ago, wasn't it? I mean, what do you guys do?
Yeah, good question. This is the dream to do Daytona, you know, especially in the GTP class, and also with my normal team that I run for an IndyCar Meerschaank Racing, and also with HRC. So it's a very natural thing to do, even if everything is kind of new and I've never done the top category before. It's perfect to do this in Austin. As you say, that it's almost a half-year break in the IndyCar season, so to do this is so good, just to kind of get the racing brain started again, get some rust out of the way, even if it's a very different car to drive. I think just the racecraft and being around other cars this time of the year is huge.
Especially with a multi-class, you've always got something to focus on about an overtaking, or even if it is a slower class, that must get your brain really sort of in the mix.
Yeah, and I think this car is actually way more technical than IndyCar, so there's a lot more going on behind the wheel here, you know, on top of just driving the car fast. You know, all the controls and radio instructions and stuff, it's definitely a different level. So it's really good to kind of like, I feel like it'll be kind of easy going back to IndyCar in a way. I was
going to say, Felix, look, from what you've just said there, does that then make the IndyCar feel a lot easier, less to think about?
Yeah, it's definitely, obviously done it for 7 years now, so it's back to the roots a bit. But yeah, like IndyCar, I guess it's more just kind of flat out, always flat. Like every time you're in the car, you're doing a quick lap, and here, you know, you're always on old tires, and you're sharing the car with 3 other drivers. So it's a completely different beast, but I love it, man. I think this is, you know, with IndyCar, really the best racing in the world, and luckily they're both in America, and I get to do them with a great team, so I'm super excited.
You're a lucky man. Thanks, Felix.
And someone else who embraces different types of racing. It's all motorsport, but there's so much different thinking that has to take place, and multi-layered thinking, as is the case of driving a prototype.
Hey, think about his single-seater career. He was excellent at the F3 level, won Macau a couple of times, European F3 champion in 2015, then transitioning to whether it's prototypes or he raced into DTM. He's done Formula E, now IndyCar, sports cars. I believe when he gets in the Rolex for the first time, he will be the only driver to have raced a hybrid Indy car, a Formula E car, and now one of these hybrid GTP LMDH cars. I know there are a few who have tested all of them. Tom Blomqvist comes to mind, but his IndyCar tenure ended before he ever got the chance to race one. So as far as I can tell, Felix would have that distinction for whatever that's worth.
Well, it just kind of displays the adaptability to be quick in all three, though, as well. So, and they keep asking him back to compete actively. So good to hear from Felix. He doesn't know whether that time's going to be deleted. Maybe he does know, but he didn't want to kind of commit to it. But it's clearly a case-by-case basis, this new rule, and this was going to be a bit of a learning weekend as well. It was tough for the 5 car to be the first example of it, because that was not cut and dried at all, and I'm sure they had a discussion with the 5 Proton competition crew about a component being left on the racetrack. But then the 60 car did stop on the road. Is that any different from Sheldon van der Linden's BMW stopping that caused the red flag, and they had a time deleted? It's the 6th placed car, so it would certainly change the front 3 rows. What I don't know is the second best fastest time set by Tom Blomqvist. Did he get a second best time? He should have done, but there wasn't much time left in that session.
That's right, because of that red caused by the BMW that you alluded to. I think at best you were looking at maybe 3 laps at pace, and all of those still you were working up the tire temps because it was so cold yesterday. So that's a really good question. We will see. Now, it's an interesting rule about potentially losing your qualifying time in practice retroactively, and that could happen here in Daytona. But interestingly, this is the only race on the WeatherTech schedule where there is a practice session after qualifying. So there's no other time this year where this rule could be implemented retroactively. We hope for the Meyer-Shank folks that it doesn't happen and we don't see an instance of that, but it is a possibility depending on how race control and the stewards decide to read the incident.
Kamui Kobayashi's now fastest in the session in the number 40 Cadillac Wayne Taylor Racing V Series R. His time 1:36.3. As we head back towards the LMP2 part of the pit lane, here's Nick Damon at Era Motorsport.
With Ryan. Yeah, Ryan, last time I saw you, you were looking rather forlornly over a Ferrari that was not behaving itself in Dubai. How's the last 10 days been? Better, I hope.
Oh, it was nice to get home in my own bed after a couple of weeks. Kind of wish we still had the Dubai weather in Daytona here, but no, good. I mean, we had a good day in Dubai, and unfortunately, we didn't finish off, I think, a good shot at podium. I came back after that. The team stayed on for the Ferrari program, did Abu Dhabi, and so I got back here Monday after Dubai. So I'm good to go now. Got a couple of weeks back home, live in Orlando, so got to sleep in my own bed.
Now, one of the big changes, of course, on the Era Motorsport car is you've now got this checkerboard green, different colour green, bit of a blue. What's the livery change all about?
So we got 2 pretty big tech giants in the car with David and Toby, and they come up with the livery pixels, right? So a lot of 1s and 0s in their world. But that's cool. I mean, I think also, like, we seem to always bring some pretty cool liveries at Era. This might be the best one yet.
You must be pretty pleased with this lineup because you kind of snagged some of the best drivers of their particular day. David Hansen, a fantastic racing driver. Toby Sari, brilliant, as we saw him in the BMW in Dubai. This is suddenly look like an incredibly strong team you put together. Is that luck or judgment, Ryan?
I mean, obviously Dwight moved on to the Ferrari program, so with the way the rules, we needed a good bronze. We got Toby in here. A couple of new kind of key personnel changes in the team. Yeah, it's kind of like everybody's trying to find their foot a little bit. I've worked with Paul Lou before. I've worked with David before, but not for a few years. Toby's new at the team, new engineer at the team with Tim Lewis. So we're just trying to spend today working on race setup stuff. I think we're okay.
Yeah, I missed out Paul Lou Chateau's absolute superstar. But the other point is, I've noticed this year, walking up and down the pit lane for the, I think, 11 or 12 P2s, there are some stellar lineups. Why do you think P2 is managing to attract so many really, really good drivers?
I mean, I think it's still a great formula. I think that obviously without BOP, a lot of the drivers really enjoy it, and the teams enjoy it. We don't have to play any games. It's you go over to the BOP world of GT3 racing, and you spend most of your weekend trying to not get in trouble with the manufacturer. So it's a good formula. Obviously, the car's been around a long time now. At the same time, the competition's getting stronger, and we don't have 2 or 3 fast cars anymore. I mean, every session somebody different's the top spot there. But yeah, I think just that the cars haven't changed. The teams have got a lot closer together over the last few seasons, and yeah, pretty stout 12 cars this year.
So The question being, as you as a team manager and the driver, is how can you make the difference? Because you've got these great teams, you've got a car everyone can set up. How can you, as a team, make the difference?
Yeah, it gets harder every year. I mean, you know, we can't re-engineer the wheel, but there's a lot of stuff you can do on the P2 cars when it comes to third springs and dampers, and you know, you got to maximize the aero. It's, you know, when they took the power away from us, the cars became way more downforce and cornering dependent. So the last couple of years, the cars have got really, really quick in the corners. The new Michelin's a lot better this year, but it's also a different tire to last year. So, you know, it's like a lot of the stuff that we knew worked in previous seasons didn't necessarily work this year. So still trying to get our head around a little bit on the new tire. But I think we have a good race car.
Ryan, I mean, I see you're in Civi, so you've decided to elect not to go out this final session. Then you just rotating the other 3 drivers?
I just do what I'm told. I was told to stay in my jeans, trying to stay warm. I'm doing that.
I thought you were in charge. You don't tell yourself then?
No, I'm definitely not in charge. That's way above my pay grade.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
So Nick and Ryan chatting about David Heinemeier Hansen, and he mentioned Toby as well. I immediately thought Toby Sowery, just as Nick Damon did. It's not actually Toby Sowery. Toby's in the 04 LMP2 car. We're talking about Toby Lütke here, who is a rather successful co-founder of things like Shopify, Canadian with a German background. What do you know, Brian?
Born in Koblenz, Germany, but has lived in Canada most of his life, races under a Canadian license, and hasn't raced at this level ever before. But this has been an aspiration for some time. Does have some experience racing things like Radicals, TCR cars, LMP3 even, kind of at the club amateur level, but gets this chance to step up and join a good friend from the world of computer software developing, as you heard Ryan Tiao allude to, David Heinemeier Hansen. Now, this is all coming to me from people who I know who work in the computer industry, so I'm going to do my best to distill this correctly and in a way that people can understand.
You'll be fine.
But what I am told is David Heinemeier Hansen created something called Ruby on Rails. And Ruby on Rails was what Tobias Lütke used to create Shopify. So there's the connection there. The two have known each other from a business perspective for a long time, but now David may be helping mentor Toby a little bit in his move into motorsports, and they get the chance to team up in the developer car, as the team is calling it, for Era Motorsport here this weekend.
So Ruby on Rails is a kind of development program.
So I'm told.
Maybe you can API into somehow, and you can create your own thing, which Toby has done spectacularly well. I've just looked at his estimated wealth. It's not too bad.
Better than some countries, I understand.
But has really only taken sort of gone into motor racing, should I say, in recent years, as Ryan has so eloquently explained, and I'm struggling. 14 minutes to go. Ben Keating is fastest in the GTD Pro category. The number 19 car in GTD is fastest as well so far. The times I'm thinking are going to change in the closing moments. That's the Van der Steur Racing Aston Martin Vantage. We'll go back to pit road and to hear from Joe Bradley.
I have just bumped into a driver that I remember the first time I would have interviewed John Field would have been at the inaugural Petit Le Mans race back in 1998. I remember you fondly, John, the Banana Joe entry. What on earth are you doing back in a prototype here in IMSA? John Field's in the Europol car, by the way, everybody.
Yeah, well, you know, I love racing, and I've been following these P2 cars, and they're phenomenal cars, and there's a place for me, and I found it, and this team is great. My co-drivers are unbelievable, so I got a lot to learn, but I'm having a blast.
How do they match? I mean, former ALMS champion in, I think, LMP 675, yeah, when it was called that. This is effectively the same class LMP2, isn't it? How do the cars match up? Are there any comparison?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this car, you need to drive a little more delicate, you know, let it coast into the corner, then get heavy on the gas. So, you know, I'm learning the car. I'll find my speed. I'll be there.
Do you realise how old you are, by the way? I mean, you know, you could have gone into a GT car, John, but here you are. You're back where you belong, I think.
You have to reflect on that, don't you? No, I'm living the dream. It's really a great place, and I love IMSA. I love all the teams, and the drivers are phenomenal. Incredible talent here. I'm just glad there's a space for me.
You can never get this drug out of your bloodstream, can you? It doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was talking to Duncan Dayton last night. He called me, and we were just reflecting on all our years together driving. What a great guy, what a great driver. I mean, it's just great to be back.
Are you talking him into coming back as well?
You know, I was talking to him. We're considering a team next year.
Mate, that's an exclusive, actually. John, I look forward to catching you in the race. I look forward to catching you in the middle of the night and asking if you can actually see out there. Because if I would, we're of a similar age, and I know I couldn't see much out there. Great to see you, mate. I can't tell you how great it is to catch up with you. John Field, everybody. He still looks as fit as a butcher's dog, if that correlates.
It does. Thank you, Joe. Great to hear from John, and as enthusiastic as he's always been. Looking forward to the 63rd edition of the Rolex 24. We're live here on RS2, IMSA Radio. Ryan Marine and Johnny Palmer in the Ford Performance Broadcast Centre. This is in the final 15, certainly in the final 10 minutes, particularly because this is the final free practice session before the race. Just everything is ramped up a level. I noticed Jordan Taylor's got on board the quickest car so far, the 40 Wayne Taylor Racing Cadillac. There was also a driver change, putting Nico Pino in the 5 Proton Competition Porsche. They've been on the back foot ever since that suspension failure, which might have been wishbone related. We were hearing from the team early on in the weekend, but times may really start to tumble now.
Looking that way, that lap from, well, I don't know if it was Jordan Taylor who said it, but he is in that car right now, 136.3. That is pretty stout. It's nearly half a second clear of the rest of the field. Meanwhile, LMP2, Malte Jakobsen currently in the 04, the CrowdStrike by APR car. That's the quickest in that class. Unsurprisingly, perhaps it's Corvette quickest in GTD Pro, but it's the TF Sport Trackhouse entered Privateer GTD Pro entry, with Ben Keating currently driving that WeatherTech-sponsored machine, and then Valentin Haseclo quickest in the GTD class for the Aston Martin Vantage GT3.
Klaus Bachler's just come into pit road in the number 77, the GT car, which is the AO Racing Porsche, third in GT Pro. So Keating fastest in the 91 Trackhouse, as you've said. Marco Mappelli now drives the plaid Lamborghini for FAF Motorsports. Car number 9, second fastest, and third in GT Pro is Bachler, now bailing out of the session. A little further down in GTD, James Colado's Triassi Competizione Ferrari, the 021, so that's the one that's been trouble-free to date, is second fastest in GTD. Here's a little more with a CrowdStrike pit report from Nick.
With Dane Cameron out of the AO Dragon, as you like to call it, in P2. Dane, I mean, how are you finding? Are you enjoying your newfound lease of life in P2?
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, the car is obviously familiar from when I was in DPI days, so I feel quite at home in the Orca. It's obviously a different category, different set of regulations to understand what box is open, what box is locked a little bit in terms of the regs. But we have a really great bunch of guys and girls here at AO, really good teammates as well, so I feel quite confident, honestly.
A couple of years, obviously, as a Porsche Works driver with the GTPs. I mean, there are 10,000 buttons to press and 4 million knobs to learn about. Is it nice having a pure racing experience in these cars?
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't nice just to hit the button and go, for sure. So, yeah, it's simple in a way, but it's also hugely competitive when you look at the teams and the drivers that we have here. But yeah, it's also a very pure sense of you just work out your own thing. There's no BOP games. You just stay focused, work on your race car, work on all the small details, and really try to execute the race. So we've tried to sort of maintain that long-range view. Feel like every session we've been right in the mix. So yeah, I feel very good about it.
Of course, the other thing you have to get used to is you're not the fastest thing on track, so you have to both overtake and look in your mirrors. How's that experience?
It's been a little while. It's been a little while since I've been not in the overall category. Yeah, it's a different dynamic. Obviously, the way we make speed in the LMP2 cars, we're hugely quick in the corners, being light, but we don't have the big top speed. So even just trying to reacclimate myself to the closing distances to GTs, all that thing is just a little bit different. Try to remember to look back every once in a while as well. But luckily at Daytona, we've got a great set of spotters to get us through the day.
P2 probably the most competitive it's ever been. What do you think? What edge can you bring to this team? Because obviously we've got some great drivers in P2 now.
Yeah, I think some experience for sure, I'd like to say at this point. And I think, the way that I approach these races and approach this championship, I think is fairly well refined. So, trying to bring that view on what's worked for me to bring me all these championships over the years, and use that preparation and all those days that went wrong in the past to try to avoid tripping over these same growing pains in the future here. So obviously they had some great potential last year, but, they felt like... So they've made some changes top to bottom, not just myself. So we're hoping to take that next step forward. We saw the same resurgence, from Rexy from year 1 to year 2, and we're really hoping the same here with PJ. I really can't say enough about how quick he has been, and his qualifying record last year with his rate of experience is very, very impressive. So I'm hoping also to contribute to his learning curve and bring him to the next level also.
Thanks, Lane. Good luck to you into Spike. Cheers, mate.
Yeah, cheers.
Dane Cameron with Nick. Ryan, you made a good point to me in that he also has some Acura experience, and actually the underpinnings of the Acura are very Orica.
Yeah, you heard Dane allude to it just kind of tangentially in that conversation with Nick, but yeah, when he was running for Team Penske in the DPI, that was the Acura ARX 05, which the underpinnings of that are this Orica 07 LMP2 that we see on track right now. I thought he also brought up an interesting point. It has been a while since he's done anything full season and anything but the top class. Dane do 3 LMP2 races in the World Endurance Championship for Team Penske back in 22. That was part of their ramping up to take over the 963 program. But you've got to go back to his championship GTD winning season in 2014, since Dane Cameron was racing full-time at IMSA in any class but the top class. He does have experience. He's been a champion at multiple levels, but it's been a little while, and he mentioned right there, it does take some reacclimating to get used to the idea. You got to look behind you from time to time after so many years in the top class.
Andy Lally's just put in the best time so far in the session for the Aston Martin Vantage of Magnus Racing, 15th place in GTD. There's also been improvement for Alessio Rivera, which will please the guys on the 0-2-3, because with Onofrio Triassi in that car earlier on, it was very slow. We think tyre related, but the Italian going much better now that they've made sure that all 4 tyres are inflated. And 149.418. Also, Romain Grosjean improving to a 138.1 in the 63 car, which is, Grosjean's now out of that. 63, remind me, Ryan, it sounds very Lamborghini-ish.
GTP, yes, that's with now Riley running the car this year. That's a change there. The driver lineup remains static, but this is now the full focus for Lamborghini Quadricorsa. No World Endurance Championship program, just the 5 races announced here stateside. That's a big cutback from what we've seen from them in the past as they try and get that car in a more healthy performance window, let's say. It's had its niggles over its brief tenure at both the World Endurance Championship level and here in the WeatherTech Championship.
Rene Rast just been plugged into the BMW that is the quicker of the 2 from the prototypes. That's the 25 M Hybrid V8. So now in the hands of the German, previous multi-DTM champion, Laurens Vanthoor in the 7 Porsche Penske Motorsport car, which was a little damaged from earlier exploits with Nick Tandy at the wheel. Looking brand new now, though, on the infield, heading for the International Horseshoe. Still room for that car to improve in the remaining 3 minutes and 20 seconds.
Great work by the Team Penske crew, and they had all hands on deck. We alluded to this earlier. That incident happened very early in the session and called them into pit lane, took a close look at the right front suspension, gave that the okay, but then everyone was clustered around the car, and we can only speculate they were trying to find the cause of the issue, because if you're just joining us, it was very odd. A red flag was already displayed for the stopped number 60 Meyer-Shank car, and all of a sudden, Nick Tandy, in a section of the track where you really just want to go straight, the car ended up veering to the right and made not insignificant contact with the outside retaining wall. They lost a good chunk of this practice, but they're back on track now and actually 4th fastest, so no harm, no foul, it would appear.
Let's hope so for them, although they do have a big chunk of time between the end of this session and the start of the race, I suppose, but they'll be wanting to reserve that to fine-tuning the car in readiness for the Rolex 24. And we've heard from so many people actually probably setting the car up for the final 2 hours and not exactly ignoring the opening 22, but that is all about staying in the mixture. And ideally on the lead lap, even if you fall a lap back, it's not unheard of, though, to be there or thereabouts in the closing stages.
That is one thing about the IMSA style of racing that is distinct from what you see in ACO rules, right, with your Code 60s or virtual safety cars, whatever they're called these days, away from North American shores.
I struggle, to be honest.
Our safety cars are the old-fashioned safety cars here at the WeatherTech Championship. Safety car goes out, field gets condensed, wave buys take place. There are so many ways to stay in touch. And look, the purists will say, well, you know, the leading car had earned that gap. They should retain it. There's a case to be made for sure, but you look back at the annals of this race in recent memory, and you cannot quibble with the finishes that we've had over the last decade plus. And if entertainment is your thing, albeit you have to put up with some lengthy safety car periods to go through the process to get there, but the payoff at the end of 24 hours is hard to argue with.
I just think there's room for it all.
Correct.
You know, you have a way of doing things in one particular race or one particular championship. Another one does it differently. It's all motor racing, and it can all be thoroughly exciting, door-banging stuff potentially. But, yeah, here you're almost guaranteed a close finish because late cautions are typical. Unless it was the last time I was here, which was 5 years ago, we went for the record distance, 833 laps, I think, with minimal stoppages. And fair play to race control here at IMSA. They always try and keep it green for as long as possible. Count to 10, count to a few more if necessary. But yeah, who doesn't like a late caution to drum up the suspense?
Speaking like a Yank, I love it. You'll fit in just fine over here.
Thank you. So 20 seconds to go. Jordan Taylor in the number 40 Cadillac Wayne Taylor Racing V Series R. That, from memory, was a Kamui Kobayashi time. Now there's a potential issue for the 57 GT Mercedes Windward Racing. This is an outlap for Philip Ellis.
Okay, maybe that's all it was, but it did seem slow, and we got a little listen in from on board as well. It didn't seem totally up to speed, but nevertheless, car seems to be moving just fine right now as the checkered flag waves for the end of this final WeatherTech practice session.
The checker flies. Jordan Taylor is going to be a few more moments before he crosses the line, if indeed he stays out. Matt Campbell in the 6 Penske 963 looking like he's going to finish the session in second, as Philip Ellis has now just straight-lined the Le Mans chicane.
There is something strange going on, but it doesn't seem to be catastrophic, and I suppose now's the time to have it because they've got plenty of time to go through everything ahead of the start of the big race.
That gloriously sounding 6.2 litre normally operated V8 sounds pretty good in the background, I have to say, so I'm not sure it's engine related, but almost as if the car was just thrown out for one lap for Philip Ellis to get some mileage beneath the wheels. It's not gone exactly to plan, but at least he will get back to pit road.
The onboard shot, though, you could see Philip's eyes, and he was looking down at the dash with furrowed brow, so maybe a little consternation, but nevertheless, we get to the end of the session relatively clean.
And one or two are deciding to head into the tri-oval proper to do a full slowing down lap. Others, though, bailing out a little earlier than that. And just hearing, actually, that the number 13 AWA Corvette doesn't appear to have done any laps in the session, and we're nearing the end of our little slot for free practice 3, so it might be a bit too late to mop up that story, but Marvin Kerchhofer was, well, the assigned driver, you might say, but he didn't do any laps at all, nor his teammate. So that's the number 13 car that would have been hoping at least to do some laps, having probably not done that many last night either. And that might be a genuine problem and something for us to explore in the closing stages. But everybody else has at least done some laps. Max Hesse in the Paul Miller Racing BMW is even lower than that in 61st position. Not quite sure why that is, but 17 laps completed.
They're shown as making 11 pit stops, so I think they did a lot of in and out laps, maybe some driver change practice, maybe scrubbing in some tires. So they did at least get out, but did not set a representative lap time. But, yeah, well, to see what is at the root of the issues for number 13, and AWA had the chance to speak with Ori Fidani, one of the drivers in that car yesterday, and he was all excited about the way the program has evolved from its difficult debut here at Daytona 1 year ago. But they've got a lot of resources to fall back on, as we have heard from a number of the Corvette teams, everyone working from the big tent mindset, and they'll put their heads together and try and get to the bottom of whatever the issue might be.
So, everywhere going quiet around the World Centre of Racing. Let me just whip through some of the crucial times for the third and final free practice session ahead of the 63rd edition of the Rolex 24. It was Jordan Taylor latterly in the Cadillac Wayne Taylor Racing V-Series R, but Kamui Kobayashi time tops the session, 1:36.3 from car number 40. From the Porsche of Matt Campbell, Porsche 963 from Penske Motorsport, car number 6. Then the René Rast-driven BMW, although that won't have been a René time. The 25 car did a 1:37.0 earlier on. Then the second of the Porsche Penske Motorsport 963s with Lawrence Vantor closing the session. Car number 7, fourth fastest, ahead of Will Stevens in his Cadillac for Wayne Taylor Racing, number 10. And then the 31 Action Express V-Series R, the Cadillac Whelan entry, Earl Bamber doing some laps in that, finishing 6th in the session. LMP2 was topped by the 04 CrowdStrike Racing by ARP Orica. Colton Herter in 04 ahead of Luis Perez Companc in the AF Corsa 88 and Tom Dillman in the 43 Inter Europol competition. GTD Pro topped by Shane Van Gisbergen in the Trackhouse by TF Sport Chevrolet Corvette, car number 91. James Hinchcliffe with potentially some dramas in the closing stages in his Lamborghini Pfaff Motorsports car, only because it's now greyed out on my screen. I'm not sure whether it actually got back to pit road, but it did finish the session second. Lauren Heinrich in the AO Racing Porsche, number 77, third fastest. And in GTD, Valentin Hasclo in the Van der Steur Racing Aston Martin, fastest in car number 19, ahead of Mike Skeens, Triasi Competizione Ferrari, number 021. And the Ford Multimatic Motorsports Mustang, number 65, at the end, driven by Frederick Verviche. It had earlier done a 1:48.4. And that was the fourth fastest GT Pro car, ahead of the third fastest GTD of Tom Gamble and the Heart of Racing Aston Martin. Free practice is done, and the next time we'll be talking about the Rolex 24 cars, it will be the countdown to green. My thanks to Nick Damon and Joe Bradley providing the CrowdStrike Pit and Paddock reports, and I was joined here in the Full Performance Global Broadcast Centre by Ryan Marine. I'm Johnny Palmer, and we'll see you again very soon here on IMSA Radio.
Thanks, guys, over there at IMSA Radio. Hope you've enjoyed coverage of the third practice session. Tomorrow, it all starts. You can join us on JB Motorsports here on YouTube and Twitch and Downforce Radio for all the action. Our 24 hours of watch-along coverage coming your way tomorrow. Join us here for the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Bye-bye.